Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar from the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade about what needs to be done to get more British SMEs trading internationally online, a session we're running in partnership with Alibaba.com. My name is William Barnes-Graham, the Executive Editor at the Chartered Institute, and I'm delighted to be bringing you today's webinar on a clearly significant topic. A report from the Social Market Foundation in 2022 found that there are 70,000 SMEs in the UK who could be exporting but aren't. The report states that if the UK succeeded in getting these businesses to trade internationally, including through online channels, this could generate £9.3 billion in gross value add to the economy, a significant haul indeed. The report made a series of recommendations, including the establishment of a new industry-led commission to advise government on how it can better support SMEs online. The Chartered Institute heard this call and set up the E-commerce Trade Commission in June 2023, with Amazon, eBay, and indeed Alibaba.com among the various e-commerce giants and other industry bodies who have joined the Commission's board. We'll be shortly hearing about what the Commission has been up to, and we'll also be hearing some practical tips from Alibaba.com about how businesses can indeed thrive internationally online. But on the next slide, we'll be hearing more about this shortly, but the Commission did indeed publish an interim report about its ongoing research and industry consultation, which you can scan the QR code on the screen to download. The report makes a series of recommendations to government about how to boost UK SME exports with 3 key focus areas, including trade tech adoption, emerging markets, and support for female-led businesses. We're going to hear more about this report shortly, and I've also posted a link in the chat. Next slide, please. In terms of today's speakers, I'm delighted to welcome back Grace Thompson, the UK Public Affairs Lead at the Chartered Institute, who is also deeply involved in the E-commerce Trade Commission. Grace has significant Westminster and public affairs experience as well, and has advised a range of MPs. She has also previously worked at Edelman Global Advisory and has been with the Chartered Institute for, I believe, around 2 years now. On the next slide, Grace is joined by 2 excellent guest speakers today. Margarita Mitsura joins us from our partners for today's webinar, Alibaba.com, where she is the EU Strategic Partnerships Manager. Margarita has a background in strategic consulting and financial and payment services. And we're also delighted to be joined by Sarah Carrington, the Trading and Procurement Manager at CoffeeLink. CoffeeLink brings a wide range of specialty barista quality, freshly roasted and ethically sourced coffee flavors to your doorstep. And we're really looking forward to hearing about how the firm has succeeded internationally using online platforms. So as ever, a brilliant panel for today's webinar. I hope you agree. On the next slide, though, before we get into Grace's presentation, we're going to run a quick poll to find out a little bit more about you, our audience. So here asking, which of the following describes your business? Are you already exporting, considering exporting, or are you not yet considering exporting? While you're answering that poll, the usual housekeeping notes from me. Firstly, you can contact me with any comments or questions using the question panel on the GoToWebinar window, which is usually to the right-hand side of your screen. We hope to get to a number of your questions today, but please note we cannot guarantee we will get to every question in the allocated time, which is going to be the full hour today. Secondly, you will receive a recording of the webinar and a follow-up email we will be sending over the next couple of days. Please do get in touch if for any reason this doesn't reach your inbox. I'll give you a few more seconds to answer the poll. Thank you everyone for answering as ever. A few more people, it's about half of you have responded. Okay, I think that's a minute now, so I'll close it. Share the results. So 79% of you are already exporting, 7% considering, 14% not considering. And that's broadly typical of these webinars. We at the Institute tend to have an audience of people who are already involved in international trade, generally speaking, but great to see some people who are newer to it on the line as well. At this point, though, on the next slide, I'd like to hand over to Grace to say a little bit more about the E-commerce Trade Commission and its recent interim report, Small Business, Big World. Over to you, Grace.
Thanks, Will, and yeah, thanks for that overview at the start of the E-commerce Trade Commission. If we could just move on to the next slide, please. So a bit more detail on the Commission. So the UK's first industry-led e-commerce trade commission was convened by the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade in June 2023. And it was specifically set up to encourage and support businesses to trade and export online. It seeks to address existing trade barriers, simplify pathways to trade, and incentivise small businesses in particular to participate in international e-commerce. And as you can see from this lovely slide here, we've got a great set of members of the Commission. So Association of International Courier and Express Services, Alibaba, of course, Amazon, eBay, Federation of Small Businesses, Google, Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, and Shopify. And the really useful thing as well is that the Department for Business and Trade also sits on the Commission in order to provide a smooth flow of feedback and ideas directly to policymakers. So we have got that great channel into government, which is really helpful as we put forward different policy recommendations. Next slide, please. So as Will mentioned, one of the pieces of activity that we conduct at the Commission is around policy recommendations. More broadly, we also look at kind of direct business support and also trade promotion, but the policy recommendations angle is what we're looking at today. So we released in September our first year policy paper, and this was specifically looking at 3 key areas where we think the government can focus to support more SMEs to trade internationally online. These are trade tech adoptions, female-led SMEs, and emerging markets. And just to give a bit of an overview of how we gathered the data for this paper, the Social Market Foundation, who we partnered with and who indeed did the report which led to the setting up of the Commission itself, surveyed 525 SMEs from across the UK. And also we had 3 different working groups, each addressing each of these policy areas that you can see on your screen. So just to briefly cover these 3 areas and a bit of an overview of what the report found. Trade tech obviously covers a very wide range of technologies, so looking at emerging tech, artificial intelligence, e-commerce platforms, interoperability of platforms and systems, etc., etc. And there's a considerable use of various types of trade tech amongst exporters already. So for example, 64% of SMEs making use of trade tech through e-commerce platforms reported that technologies enabled them to more easily access customers in overseas markets, which is very positive. But however, the cost of investing in various types of trade tech restrained both existing exporters and considerers. And that's an interesting, I suppose, differential from this policy paper, is that out of the 525 SMEs, we surveyed both those who are already exporting and those who are considering exporting. So the ratio was 58% of those 525 SMEs were current exporters and 42% were considering exporting. So we were able to kind of contrast and compare what the difference were in various areas. And another thing that both existing exporters and considerers said was a challenge with trade tech technology was challenges to wider trade tech deployment. So for example, complementary technologies by other private entities within the export value chain and customs agencies weren't always linked up. So we found that there's quite a lot of opportunities within this area to break down barriers in order to speed up business processes and consumer interaction. And a bit later, we'll come on to some of the proposals we put forward to aid with this. Another opportunity area that we found considerable scope for is expanding the number of female-led exporting firms within the UK. So data reported within the paper suggested that in 2020, it was only 7% of female-owned SMEs in the UK who exported. And this figure was in contrast to Canada, who we kind of used as a bit of a benchmark of comparison throughout the paper, where just over 10% of female-owned smaller firms exported. The gap here indicates that there's quite a lot of potential for increasing the proportion of UK female-owned SMEs which export. And one of the questions in our survey found that 86% of female business leaders in e-commerce SMEs experienced at least one additional challenge which impacted their business activities. More specifically, nearly 4 in 10 female senior decision makers in SMEs reported that fear of failure and struggling to balance family obligations had significantly affected their ability to succeed in business. And the third most frequently reported additional challenge, which won't be a surprise to many people on this call, was access to finance. One of the interesting things that we found from speaking to these SMEs is that trade tech could actually play a key role in increasing the number of female-led SMEs that export, particularly because of the speeding up of processes and the eventual reduction of costs once initial investment has been plugged in. And the final area we looked at was emerging markets, which is also a good source of future export growth for SMEs. So for emerging market considerer exporters who are already exporting to developed economies, interest in these places was driven by the prospect of untapped customers for the kinds of products they sell, evidence of existing demand for the products they offer, and which they can win a share of, and which they're fairly confident they can win a share of. But barriers include external obstacles such as customs, demand conditions, regulatory complexity, and risks associated with the transportation of products to customers in emerging markets, as well as other factors such as payment reliability and the existence and strengths of relationships with in-country partners. There's so much more I could say on all of these issues, so I encourage you to read the report, which will give you a QR code to in a couple of slides' time. However, I just want to quickly cover the 6 key recommendations off the back of the findings. And I think they're on the next slide, if you can move that along. Thank you. So each of these kind of policy recommendations actually have a set of sub-recommendations which go with them. So again, I encourage you to read the report for more detail, but just a bit of an overview. Many of you might know that the government's announced that it's going to put forward its industrial strategy later this month, and then the trade strategy, which will align with it, will follow in due course. And one of the things that we recommended in the paper is to make sure that the industrial and trade strategies are really aligned on SME e-commerce policy, so that across both the strategies, that's a single effort to reflect the complementarities between general business competitiveness and exporting success. We also suggested as part of that there's an industrial and trade policy group at cabinet level, and also merging business and export offerings to a greater degree than they're currently merged. The second recommendation looks at official guidance available to SMEs around exporting. I know that there can be difficulties in finding the right kind of information needed, so the recommendation from the paper is that there's a single sort of one-stop shop hub giving consolidated access to high quality sources of advice available from the private and third sectors into a single hub called something like the e-commerce trade resource hub. So we actually announced at the same time as launching this paper that we are going to indeed move forward as a commission in creating that resource hub. And please do get in touch with any thoughts you might have about what would be most helpful to you as a business out of that resource in the future. The third recommendation is around the adoption and intensification of the use of trade tech by SME considerers and exporters through boosting the amount of digital advice made available through the DBT Export Support Service, and also introducing grant funding for investment in trade tech for up to 70,000 considerate exporters. So we're kind of having discussions at the moment with DBT and other government departments as to what that could potentially look like. Coming back to the industrial and the trade strategy, we also believe that should include plans to further develop and embed the use of technology across all parts of the trade processes where it has influence, and to support SMEs to more deeply embed the use of trade tech amongst the exporters and those who have export potential, as well as including a plan for seizing the opportunities presented by the growth in emerging markets. And finally, we've working on different proposals put forward around national mentoring schemes and female trade promotion campaigns to look at increasing the number of UK female-owned goods selling SMEs which export. So there's a lot of recommendations there, a lot of work to do, but we're really excited to be looking at those recommendations alongside the Department for Business and Trade. And if you could just bring up the email address, which I think is on this slide. If you've got any questions on any of that, or if you've got any thoughts on the recommendations, please do get in touch with us. The email address isn't very natural to remember, so you might want to take a picture of this slide on your phone, but it's the ECT/commission@export.org.uk. And yeah, very interested to hear your thoughts, particularly on the resource hub and what would be most useful to you out of a resource like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. I'll post that contact in the chat shortly as well. But yeah, great to hear more about what the Commission's been doing, and the recommendations in the interim report. They all make a lot of sense, and I think they largely tally with what we've heard on this webinar program down the years as well, particularly things around the single source of that advice. I think that'd be something really valuable to businesses. On the next slide, please do download the report if you would like to read it. I'll leave the QR code on screen for a moment to allow you to do so. It's also in the chat already. In the meantime, Grace, we've had a couple of great questions come in from the audience already, including this one from Stephen, who says, regarding trade tech adoption, are there any particular technologies that the paper recommends businesses should be looking at?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think generative AI is one area where businesses are increasingly using various AI products in order to boost their selling. In fact, the paper showed that the majority of businesses surveyed believe that AI would make a significant positive difference to their exporting potential over the next 5 years. I think also looking at things such as digital documentation and e-signatures, so 32% believe that it would make a significant positive difference to adopt those measures within their business. And I think we're seeing that on the regulatory side as well, with the UK, for example, last year bringing in the Electronic Trade Documents Act, and businesses gradually making use of the benefits from that. But I think the key thing riding across all of this is making sure that there's interoperability, which is not always something that we can control, particularly where it's with third countries or supply chain operators earlier in the chain. But I think working together as a business community, we can start to smooth out the wrinkles that there might be in hindering this interoperability of trade technologies.
Thanks, Grace. Hope that's useful, Stephen. It's a really interesting area. The Electronic Trade Documents Act, as you mentioned, was viewed as a very important moment last year, and there seems to be a bit of momentum in the industry more broadly about digitalisation too. On the next slide, we're going to just run another poll quickly, just to get a sense of which channels you are already using to sell internationally online, options being digital, so that could be e-commerce platforms or your own website, traditional, so that could be through retailers or wholesalers, or blend of both. So, Grace, while people are answering that poll, another question's just come in from Adriana, who says, are there any examples of other countries running successful support schemes for female-led SME exporters?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well, and definitely refer Adriana to the report, because we have got a few case study kind of comparators within that. I think I mentioned Canada before as one of the key countries we've looked at. They actually have been operating a scheme for a while called the Business Women in International Trade Initiative. And the key thing about that program is to leverage existing business networks, female-led business networks, to reach out to female entrepreneurs to spread the message about the commercial benefits of exporting. And they've also got a provision of funding for trade missions specifically for female-led SMEs, along with facilitating access to sources of export finance more broadly. And so that kind of addresses some of the barriers actually that we saw raised within the paper. And that's what we're looking to potentially emulate with a female-led mentoring scheme for female-led businesses which are considering exporting but haven't taken that step yet, to be able to connect with female-led businesses who've already taken the step to export. I think another example we had from the paper, which is worth looking at, is around Rwanda, who pursued a program to change attitudinal shifts amongst women about entrepreneurship. So promoting business as a desirable and achievable career. They had like a national campaign and made changes to some of their educational programs in order to promote confidence in exporting. And that again is interesting, given that, as I mentioned earlier, 38% of the businesses we surveyed who were female-led said that fear of failure was one of their biggest barriers. So I think actually we can learn from a lot of these countries around what we do with trade promotion, and also just boosting a sense of confidence in being able to take the step to export in the first place.
Oh, really fascinating. Thank you, Grace, for that answer. Some great schemes on the sound of it. I didn't know about the Rwandan one. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to close the poll now. So interestingly enough, a significant majority of you are using digital channels in one way or another. 44% just using digital, 44% a blend of both, only 13% using just traditional. So I suppose quite a modern looking response there, but obviously there's still very much a place for bricks and mortar. Before we move on to the next section, just one last thing from me. On the next slide. The Chartered Institute, as alluded to already, has a mission to empower businesses and individuals to grow through international trade. One of the ways we do this is through our suite of training courses and qualifications, which equip you with the expertise needed to thrive overseas and to navigate the increasingly complex and challenging regulations. You can scan the QR code for more information or use the link I'll post in the chat shortly for more information. We've got courses for various aspects of trade and levels of pre-existing expertise. So there's something for everyone, from day courses on introducing exporting to degrees in customs compliance and all of that sort of thing. So do check out the support if you need to enhance or update your trade expertise. But at this point, on the next slide, I am delighted to welcome on Margarita Mistura from Alibaba.com, who's going to give some practical tips on how to navigate B2B digital marketplaces, including Alibaba. So over to you, Margarita.
Thank you, William, and thanks, Grace, for the great opening of this webinar with the nice results from the research and very interesting insights. Good morning, everyone. I'm Margherita Mistura, and I work as Business Development Manager for Alibaba.com in Europe. The idea of today is, while speaking about how to increase the opportunities for UK SMEs to export internationally, we are here today as one of the options and one of the digital channels that are available for UK businesses interested to further exploit the export opportunity via e-commerce. So next slide, please. As Alibaba, our mission as a group is to make it easy to do business everywhere. And the company has been founded in 1999 with this idea in mind, so to facilitate through our technology how companies of all sizes and in all geographies are able to trade online. Next slide, please. Alibaba, as you might know, has a huge ecosystem in terms of services and solutions that it offers to various type of businesses. Today, the focus will be especially on our international commerce area. So everything related to international trade and not only specific trade towards China or towards other markets. In particular, within the international commerce section of Alibaba, we will focus on Alibaba.com, which is the unique wholesale and B2B platform of the group. Next slide, please. Before jumping into the Alibaba.com proposition itself, let me just remind one data that sometimes is underestimated or not always well known by everyone in terms of opportunities of trade. We often hear and speak about B2C trade, especially through digital channels and all the evolution and digitization that has happened so far. In most cases, has been concentrated on the B2C side of trade. However, as you can see from this slide, the B2B e-commerce opportunity is actually huge. It's, in terms of size, is 6 times larger than the B2C one. So we really believe that there's a huge potential out there, and that one of our mission is to support, in terms of technology, businesses that are interested in being part of this potential trade opportunity in global markets. Next slide, please. So looking at our solution, so the solution of Alibaba Group to facilitate and to support B2B trade, this is exactly what Alibaba.com as a platform does. For those who are not already familiar with our platform, we are a B2B marketplace which facilitate trade between sellers and buyers. So we operate as a matching platform. On one side, we have sellers, international sellers coming from all over the world that are interested in putting their products and their solutions online, and in this way to attract and find new buyers worldwide. Today on the platform, consider that on the buyer side, we currently have 47 million active buyers. So this is one of the strength of a global platform like Alibaba.com, which enables you with one, let's say, a digital window to access all these digital and global opportunities. And when we say global opportunities, we really mean it. If we can move to the next slide, please. Which quite clearly, I think, represents what we mean with international markets. This is a representation of some of the key countries in terms of where the buyers that are on the platform and that are using the platform every day to source for specific products, where they are located. As you can see, the reach is quite broad. We have a strong customer base in the United States, for example, so a lot of buyers are represented there, as well as Europe. UK itself, for example, is the third largest market in terms of buyers on Alibaba.com today. And of course, we do cover also Asia Pacific and Middle East and African countries. So it's really up to a company as a seller on the platform to decide and to choose which countries to target and which markets to access through the technology that the platforms offers. Next slide, please. So we have looked at the buyer side, but concentrating on the seller side. So what for example, UK businesses can actually leverage on the marketplace. Here you see represented some of the key industries and categories that the platform covers. We actually cover up to 40 categories. So the kind of products and solutions that can be displayed on our platform are quite variegated and varied. Here you see some of the key ones. For example, food and beverage, it's very strong on Alibaba.com, but also categories which are less common in terms of e-commerce trade, like industrial machinery, for example, or also electronics and specific tools. So it's really up to the companies to define which kind of products and which kind of niche they want to tackle. We, of course, provide through our platform also support to understand the kind of demand that there is for your product on a marketplace like Alibaba.com. So part of, let's say, the early investigation to assess a potential channel like Alibaba.com goes also through an in-depth analysis on the opportunity for your specific sector, products, and solutions. Next slide, please. In terms of what the platform then allows companies to do, as I mentioned, the company has two sides. On one, we have the buyers, on the other, we have the sellers. In terms of buyers, anyone that is interested in leveraging the platform to source for products can do it, and it's actually a free membership, the one on the buyer side. So anyone can register and start using the platform to look for spare parts, material, ingredients, and whatever your company is looking for. While in the following slide, I will try to give you a clearer idea of what instead is the journey of a seller on our platform. So any UK business that is interested in leveraging the technology to showcase its own products and to reach and try to connect with the 47 million buyers that we saw earlier. Here you see depicted some of the funnel of sellers on our platform, and the steps which a company that joins the platform will basically follow, at least in the initial phase. So first of all, the idea is to try to build the awareness of your company on the digital properties. drive, of course, the attention of buyers and potentially interested partners for your trade opportunities, generate leads, and I'll explain how that is done on our platform. And of course, once you find the interesting contacts, also be able to increase the loyalty and keep the relationship with those kind of connections. If we can move to the next slide, please. So in terms of building the awareness of your company on the platform, here you see an example of how of a company and how a B2B store of a company looks like on Alibaba.com. Each company as a seller can basically customize its own digital window to present and to showcase your own company and your own products in order to attract the interest of potential buyers. Next slide, please. One way, of course, to emerge and to be able to not only being visible, but to also attract the interest of buyers on the platform is through digital marketing. So within the platform, we do have multiple options to run advertising campaigns. If you are already, as the pool actually showed, active on digital properties and digital and e-commerce website, you might already be quite familiar with how this could look like. But basically, you can run multiple type of campaigns, either to promote a specific product or to generally promote your brand towards the audience of buyers on the platform. Next slide, please. Of course, all the activities that companies do as sellers on the platform are aimed at finding new potential buyers, so new potential leads for your business worldwide. And these on the platform can happen in two ways. So lead generation can either be an indirect activity, so through inquiries that buyers will send you on the platform. So as a seller, you will receive leads directly on your profile through messages coming from potentially interested buyers. But if we move to the next slide, we actually try to represent here also another option and a quite interesting aspects and quite different to what normally is available in a standard e-commerce experience, which is what we call request for quotation. This is a specific section of Alibaba.com where basically buyers can post requests to receive quotation for a specific product that they're looking for. And only a limited number of sellers can basically bid for that quotation and for that request. So this is really a quite interesting aspects of the platform, because it allows you to proactively look for business opportunities. And by replying and sending a quotation to a buyer, you might be able to find new opportunities on a daily basis. So logging into the platform, you can filter for your specific products and category and see if there's any request out there of buyers that might be a match with what you're currently offering. If we move to the next slide, please. Jumping to the end of this introduction, consider that all these activities, so all the journey on the platform, can also be guided by, on one side, our team, as well as our local partners that can support you in multiple steps of this funnel that we just saw. So we do offer, first of all, support in the evaluation phase, as we mentioned, to assess whether there's really an opportunity out there on our platform for your products. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in that aspect, as well as if for any business that is then interested in joining the platform, we offer customized support for the onboarding phase, as well as for the initial setup of digital marketing campaigns or conversation with the first buyers that you might be able to attract on our properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Margherita. And I believe there's one more slide with your contact details in case anyone wants to take a quick snapshot of that. For after, and we're going to do a poll in a minute anyway, which will give you a chance to contact Margherita in another way. But yeah, thank you for the presentation. Really great overview of how the Alibaba platform functions, particularly for B2B businesses, and yeah, the online opportunities very much for them as well as for B2C. So really great to hear all of that advice and overview there. Indeed, on the next slide, you'll see we're going to do our next poll. This is just an opportunity to book a one-to-one meeting with someone from Alibaba.com to receive tailored advice related to your business, if that's of interest following the presentation. So I'll leave that on for a few seconds now. As you answer that poll, Margarita, we've had some great questions come in already about Alibaba. So one has come in from Caroline, who says, given it's a global platform, is it possible to target or only sell to certain countries through Alibaba.com?
Sure. Thanks, William. Thanks, Catherine, for the question. Yes, the answer is yes. It's possible to target only specific markets and specific geographies according to your export strategy or also your current capabilities in terms of reaching specific geographies. This can be done in multiple ways. The easiest one is by filtering and selecting which countries you'd like to be visible and to access, as well as in all the lead generation functions. So the inquiries area, as well as the request for quotation section, you can filter the kind of requests and the kind of inquiries based on the geography, so that even if you receive messages from buyers which are in locations that you're not currently covering, you're sure that you're only picking and targeting those of interest for you.
Thank you, Margarita. I hope that's useful, Caroline. I'll leave the poll on for a few more seconds. Do opt in if it's something which could help you. It's a free meeting, so a great opportunity to hear about how Alibaba can support your business. Another question's come in from Ishmael. He says, is there any certification or rating system to assess the credibility of buyers and sellers?
Thanks again for the question, and yes, there is. We do have verification processes for both the actors on our platform, so both for the buyers as well as for the sellers. In terms of buyers, buyers are rated and they receive a grade from 1 to 4. So as a seller, you will be able, when interacting with a specific buyer, to understand his grading on the platform and also his history. So how well he interacted in the past, is he a credible buyer, and can we rely on this contact for business opportunities? And on the seller side, this is at the same time done in parallel during the onboarding phase. So we have a business verification process that allows us to verify and to check the credibility of the sellers that are on our platform. And also on the seller side, each seller has a rating from 1 to 5, which gives buyers a sense of the kind of supplier that they're speaking with, based on the performance of the supplier on the platform, and also based on the interactions in the past with previous buyers.
Terrific. Sounds a very, very robust process. So hopefully that's useful, Ishmael. I'm going to close that poll now. But at this point, thank you so much, Margarita. It's great to hear from you. Great to again have Alibaba on the platform. Really appreciate all the work we've done with you over the years and through the Commission as well. So thank you for joining, and we'll have you hear from you a bit more later on when it comes to the Q&A. But at this point, on the next slide, I am delighted to welcome our case study speaker for today in Sarah Carrington from CoffeeLink. Sarah, hi there. Thank you for joining us today. Great, always great to have a case study on. I think it's really important to hear from a business about these sorts of things as well. I've got a few questions for you. The first one being a pretty obvious question. Could you tell me a bit about CoffeeLink, what products you sell, and which traditional channels you've used so far?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to be part of the panel. CoffeeLink is a specialty coffee roaster, trader and importer based in Suffolk, Ipswich. We have 15 retail sites, including train stations and also London Stansted Airport. We also have a partnership with a large roaster in Dubai, so that we can service our clients in the Middle East and North Africa. Some of our channels include our retail channels, obviously, wholesale, B2B, and also online through our website and Alibaba, for example.
David, thank you. And I believe on the next slide, there's a bit of an overview of all of that as well. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, as you can see, really great coverage, lots of retail areas and also some great partnerships as well there in Dubai. Really exciting stuff. I believe there's another slide as well. So this is the online store, I believe, as well.
Yeah, our store on Alibaba.
Perfect. Well, it's great to hear about the company. I'm already wanting my next coffee just hearing about it. To bring it back to the topic we had earlier from Grace, actually, so we'll start with Grace's presentation. As we heard, the E-commerce Trade Commission's report has said that government should be looking to prioritise 3 key policy areas to boost UK trade. They were trade tech adoption, access to emerging markets, and support for female-led business owners as well. Do you agree that these are the 3 priorities? And is there anything you, as a business, would like to see added to this list?
Yes, I do. So through, online channels, you obviously have wider access to different markets, especially emerging markets, as you just mentioned, that might be more active than, the market that you currently operate in. This can then therefore allow for, trade continuity and further growth in revenue. With regards to investing in women-led businesses, absolutely. I think it's required, to promote equality within a society and promote social progress, but also you're able to provide more jobs and increase resilience within a workforce to promote economic growth.
Really important. I mean, I guess as well, just on the social level, it's really important just in terms of that inclusivity piece. It's really, really key. But as I say, there's economic benefits too. Bringing it back to Alibaba. So what motivated you and CoffeeLink to consider Alibaba.com as a sales channel for your business? And how long have you been on the platform?
So we've been on the platform for 1.5 years now, and we saw it as a tool to access, markets and our target markets, such as the Middle East and North Africa. It also allows us to generate leads through the RFQ market, and also we can create targeted ads and campaigns to generate interest in our products internationally.
Terrific. And how do you go about generating leads on the Alibaba platform?
So one of the ways which we can do this is through the RFQ market, which Margarita mentioned, where you can basically send direct quotes to buyers that are looking specifically for your product. And then the platform also has a large marketing built-in tool as well, where you can create targeted ads and campaigns to generate interest for your products to specific markets, so you can filter it to your targeted markets.
Really interesting. That targeting is so important in modern marketing. So it's great to hear that there's that functionality. And final question. What advice or tips would you give to companies considering using a platform like Alibaba as a sales channel?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So I think firstly, having patience with the platform. It takes time to learn how to use the platform and understand the buyers, and how they trade within their own countries. The next tip would be to definitely focus on the data that the platform provides. It allows you to focus and prioritize the key areas to improve your account and improve visibility of your products on the platform to improve your capabilities. And then I think the last one would be, if you are considering a platform like Alibaba, would be to go through a channel like Alioth. They can help you with the onboarding process and support in terms of understanding the data to improve and make you more competitive within your industry.
Great advice. So visibility and that platform as well, both really good tips. Thank you, sir. That's really great to hear that sort of information about a business actually experiencing using these platforms, but also some really great advice as well there. So I hope everyone has found that informative, maybe even a little inspiring as well. On the next slide, we're going to launch our final poll for today. And this one's going to ask, what is your biggest hurdle in e-commerce trade? The options being knowledge and skills, navigating rules, customs and tax, fear of failure, as Grace alluded to earlier, and other. And if you do say other, please do say in the comments. It's always nice to hear from you all. Right, well, as people are answering that poll, I think let's get into it. Let's get into the Q&A. At this stage, it's great to invite back Grace and Margarita to join Sarah as we close off today's webinar with a few minutes of your questions. So the first question, and I think this will be for Margarita and Sarah, it comes from Lydia, who says, e-marketplaces can be hard to stand out in. How can you make your brand stand out in a competitive field? Margarita, do you want to start with that one, and then we'll bring Sarah in afterwards?
Sure. It's a great question, actually, and we often speak about this with the companies that we support on their journey on the platform. Consider that I leave maybe to Sarah to describe a bit more their experience and the experience of Coffee Link, but in terms of the development of the platform in Europe, consider that the platform, the global expansion in terms of seller on the platform in Europe was launched in 2015. So the kind of history that the platform has in terms of sellers is good, is robust, but at the same time is still in the early stages of onboarding new suppliers from the European markets on our platform. So this means that in this specific moment in time, companies that are onboarding on the platform have competition from international markets for sure, but at the same time are not the kind of competition that will be present in 5-10 years from now on properties like ours, especially in the B2B area, which is more and more expanding. So what we suggest is that at the moment is also a right time to join this kind of properties where you would get competition, but not as much as you would in a certain amount of time. In terms of, however, how to promote and to stand out within this arena, we do have through technology a variety of ways to differentiate and also to find the right niche and the right kind of counterparts that are interesting for your business. From the marketing side to the request for quotation market that we help you operate. So multiple technology elements that are there to support the way in which you leverage the platform, and also the data that the platform itself contains and can be very insightful for the targeting of your export activities. I leave to Sarah actually to explain a bit more the experience directly from the Coffee Link case.
Thank you, Margarita. I think in terms of Coffee Link, some of the ways in which we make our brand stand out is by focusing on creating a strong customer service. You know, we do this to build relationships and then therefore increase, you know, brand loyalty for sustainable relationships. I think the second way is by defining our customers and target markets, because this allows us to tailor our services to their requirements. And Alibaba, you know, helps with this in terms of the way that you can filter your campaigns to certain markets and industries. And then I think the most important is by building an online presence, you know, across different platforms, so that you increase your brand recognition across, you know, all these platforms to create a strong identity to make your brand stand out.
Great answers, both. Thank you so much. It was a great service and great tailored tailored kind of filtering, but also, as you're saying just then as well, really great answers. Thank you both. I'm going to close the poll now and share the results. So this is always an interesting mix here. So 50% of you say knowledge and skills, a quarter of you navigating rules, 17% of you customs and tax, 8% other. Please do say another what you think it is. Not so many for failures. We've got a very confident audience today, but interesting because I mean different audiences will have different responses to these sorts of polls. So I mean, Grace, if I can bring you in on this one. Obviously, the Institute's very big on knowledge and skills, and indeed all of these areas really, but any surprises there in that response?
No, I think this makes a lot of sense, really. Knowledge and skills, it's something obviously that SMEs in particular have to make intentional time for. You know, if you've just set up a business and you're looking to rapidly grow, you need to take the time to invest in knowledge and skills. Some of your staff may need upskilling in particular areas. Or you might be taking on an apprentice and working out how to upskill them. So yeah, no surprises that knowledge and skills is definitely a need, but it's also it's a time costly investment, isn't it, to make sure that you have all the appropriate knowledge and skills. But in the long term, of course, that pays off.
Absolutely, it's a short-term investment, but long-term gain to have those skills in. So great response. Thanks everyone for the response to the poll. Do a few more minutes of questions. Grace, if I can keep you. I've got a question from Gary, and I know you're at the e-commerce expo recently, so you'll be here. I've heard all sorts of exciting things about the trends in the industry, and Gary asks, how might AI influence or further enable e-commerce trade?
Yes, such a broad question. I felt like most of the e-commerce expo, which for anyone who doesn't know is an amazing exhibition held at the London Excel on a yearly basis. Yeah, I felt like most of it actually was around the theme of artificial intelligence and how different tools from providers can be used to support businesses on various platforms. I think generative AI is probably one of the most used tools at the moment, and for anyone else who also isn't a tech bod like I'm not, generative AI basically is just artificial intelligence which is capable of generating things such as text, images, videos. So think like ChatGPT or Google Bard. It's something that generates text and images when you put a prompt in, and this is obviously quite helpful from a variety of different standpoints on a basic level. So for example, if you're trying to generate product descriptions quickly, or you're trying to generate an image to help a customer understand what something might look like. And I think we're seeing already that e-retailers are incorporating generative AI in order to make their consumer experience better, and personalize experiences and enhance operations. From the other side of it though, on kind of a more practical element, there's businesses which are looking to support on like the customs side of the process. So I think during the process of interviewing businesses for the paper, we came across a company called AI Doc, which was helping businesses to speedily identify HS codes that they needed, and they were using AI systems in order to speed up that process. So that, I mean, it's very wide-ranging, the power of AI across the business world. And one paper I would recommend, which is cited in the policy paper, is the impact of AI on international trade. So it's written by Christina Tay, and it's a really interesting paper if you're into the academic side of this as well.
Terrific. I mean, it's such an exciting new area. I mean, I would say by all means experiment and use these tools, but make sure the quality is good. Check everything you do using AI as well. I think that's really important. Just out of interest, anything else to add from the panel on AI, or should we move on to our next question?
Well, I was just going to say, as a user of Alibaba, there is a built-in AI within the platform, which, can help with things like customer responding to customers on the platform, but I will leave that to Margarita.
Thanks, Sarah. You're right. We didn't go into the details of that kind of technology today, but The platform is has started during the last year to promote and to launch the first artificial intelligence tools to facilitate the journey of the sellers, especially when they need to upload their products and fine-tune the kind of communication and messages to really be able to perform well on the platform. So it's something available today already on Alibaba.
Terrific, great to hear. It's already in good use. We'll have time for one more question. It's one for Sarah. It's one from Maxime, and it actually kind of speaks to some of the things Grace was saying earlier about the sort of fear of failure being sometimes a factor. But Maxime says, did you have any doubts or concerns about selling through e-commerce platforms, and how did you overcome these concerns?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, when you're working with new markets, there's always going to be some doubts and concerns. I think one of the main concerns was that, you know, you're creating new relationships with businesses outside of the UK, for us, for example. So creating that element of trust, you know, making sure that they are legitimate buyers. And the platform is quite good in terms of verifying buyers. You can see their history on the platform. You can see how long they've been on the platform, if they've bought through the platform before. So yeah, I think the main one would have been that.
Terrific, thank you so much. That's a hopefully reassuring answer to Maxime. But thank you. At this point, we're going to start wrapping up. So thank you to all of our panel. Thank you to Grace, Margarita, and Sarah for joining us today and giving us such a great overview of the opportunities and challenges that are out there for SMEs in the e-commerce trade, and some great practical tips as well for navigating these challenges. Before we go on to the next slide, I'd just like to point listeners to another report for Chartered Institutes was published recently. You can scan the QR code on the slide to download our report on 10 key rules and process changes that importers need to know about as we enter 2025, ranging from CDS to CBAMs and ESG to customs reform and various other acronyms which are explained in full in the report. I've posted the link in the chat as well. And I mean, I do recommend reading this because there really is a lot of change taking place, not just in UK trade, but in the EU and globally. So this report really does aim to help readers understand and navigate this complexity. I'll leave it on the screen for a couple more minutes. A reminder that we will be sending the slides and recording of today's webinar in a follow-up email, which you should get in the next day or so. This email will include a link to the report we've discussed today. Please do get in touch if for any reason this email doesn't come through to your main inbox. As you leave, please do let us know what you thought of today's session and any suggestions for our future events by completing the short exit survey. But for now, on the last slide, all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of the day and goodbye.